The Pokémon video game franchise is one of the most successful and recognizable entertainment franchises in the world, with its origins tracing back to the early 1990s. It has grown from a simple concept to a global multimedia empire, spanning video games, animated television shows, movies, trading cards, toys, and much more. While Pokémon is now a household name, its origins and the journey to its widespread success are fascinating, filled with innovation, cultural significance, and a deep connection with its fanbase. This article will explore the origins and history of the Pokémon video game franchise, detailing how it became a pop culture phenomenon and continues to influence generations of fans around the world. The story of Pokémon begins with Satoshi Tajiri, a Japanese game designer and the creator of the franchise. Tajiri's childhood was marked by a deep fascination with nature, particularly insects. Growing up in Tokyo, Tajiri often spent time collecting insects in the fields surrounding the city, a hobby that would later serve as the inspiration for the Pokémon concept. Tajiri was also an avid fan of video games, particularly those that involved exploration and collection. He saw an opportunity to combine these interests into a game that could replicate the feeling of collecting and discovering new creatures in nature. In the early 1990s, Tajiri, who was working as a game designer, came up with the idea for a game in which players could catch, train, and battle creatures. This concept eventually became known as Pokémon, which stands for pocket monsters in Japanese. Tajiri collaborated with Ken Sugimori, an illustrator who would go on to design the first 151 Pokémon, and Junichi Masuda, who would compose the music for the game. Together, they formed the core team behind what would become a revolutionary franchise. The first Pokémon game, Pokémon Red and Pokémon Green, was released in Japan in 1996 for the Game Boy. The games were developed by Game Freak, a company that Tajiri had founded in the late 1980s. The games featured a simple but innovative gameplay mechanic. Players would capture Pokémon, train them, and battle other Pokémon in turn-based combat. The goal was to become the Pokémon champion by collecting all 151 Pokémon and defeating the Elite Four, a group of powerful trainers. The game's appeal lay in its blend of exploration, strategy, and collection, as well as its engaging battle system that allowed players to pit their Pokémon against one another in exciting matches. The success of the first Pokémon games in Japan was immediate, but it wasn't until the games were released internationally that the franchise truly exploded in popularity. Pokémon Red and Pokémon Blue, the international versions of Red and Green, were released in the United States in 1998. The games quickly became a sensation, attracting a massive following of fans who were drawn to the addictive gameplay and the appeal of collecting all the Pokémon. The Pokémon phenomenon was further fueled by the release of the animated television series, which premiered in Japan in 1997 and in the United States in 1998. The show followed the adventures of a young trainer named Ash Ketchum and his quest to become a Pokémon master, accompanied by his faithful Pikachu. The television series, with its memorable characters, exciting battles, and themes of friendship and perseverance, resonated with children and adults alike. The Pokémon franchise's expansion into other forms of media, including movies, trading cards, and merchandise, helped solidify its place in popular culture. The release of the first Pokémon movie, Pokémon the First Movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, in 1998, was a major milestone for the franchise. The movie was a box office success and became a cultural event, further fueling the Pokémon craze. The trading card game, which had been introduced alongside the video games, also became a massive hit, with fans eagerly collecting and trading cards in an attempt to build the strongest deck. Pokémon cards were often seen as a symbol of status among children, and the game's competitive tournaments became a regular part of the franchise's events. As the years went on, the Pokémon video game franchise continued to evolve and expand. New generations of games were released, each introducing new regions, Pokémon species, and gameplay mechanics. The Pokémon Gold and Pokémon Silver games, released for the Game Boy Color in 1999, introduced a host of new features, including the ability to breed Pokémon and a real-time day-night cycle. These games were followed by Pokémon Ruby and Pokémon Sapphire, for the Game Boy Advance in 2002, which introduced the concept of double battles, where two Pokémon could battle at once. The Pokémon franchise also embraced new technologies as they became available. The Pokémon Diamond and Pokémon Pearl games, released for the Nintendo DS in 2006, introduced online multiplayer features, allowing players to trade and battle Pokémon with others around the world. These games also introduced the concept of Pokémon contests, where players could compete in beauty contests with their Pokémon. In 2016, Pokémon celebrated its 20th anniversary with the release of Pokémon Go, a groundbreaking augmented reality game for smartphones. Pokémon Go allowed players to catch Pokémon in the real world using their phone's GPS and camera, bringing the Pokémon experience to life in a way that had never been done before. The game was a global sensation, attracting millions of players worldwide and sparking a renewed interest in the franchise. Pokémon Go was a cultural phenomenon, with players gathering in parks, streets, and public spaces to catch Pokémon and participate in special in-game events. The Pokémon franchise continued to innovate with the release of Pokémon Sword and Pokémon Shield for the Nintendo Switch in 2019. These games introduced a new open-world format where players could freely explore the Galar region and take part in dynamic battles. The games also introduced new features such as Dynamaxing, a mechanic that allowed Pokémon to grow to enormous sizes during battles. These innovations helped to maintain the franchise's relevance and appeal to new generations of players, while retaining the core elements that had made Pokémon so beloved in the first place. Today, the Pokémon franchise is a cultural juggernaut with an immense global following. The franchise has expanded beyond video games and television shows to include movies, manga, merchandise, theme park attractions, and more. Pokémon has become a symbol of pop culture, beloved by fans of all ages. The franchise's success can be attributed to its timeless appeal, engaging gameplay, and ability to adapt to new technologies and trends while maintaining the spirit of adventure and discovery that defined its origins. In conclusion, the Pokémon video game franchise has come a long way since its humble beginnings in the mid-1990s. What started as a simple concept based on Satoshi Tajiri's love for nature and his passion for video games has evolved into one of the most successful and enduring franchises in history. Pokémon's success can be attributed to its innovative gameplay, captivating storylines, and its ability to connect with fans on a deep emotional level. From its early days on the Game Boy to the mobile revolution brought on by Pokémon Go, the franchise continues to capture the hearts of millions of players worldwide. As it moves forward into the future, Pokémon's legacy as a cultural phenomenon is assured, and its impact on the gaming industry will continue to be felt for years to come.